And thanks for letting a few humanists come and hang out with all you librarians. We're definitely in a different land, but we're happy to be here. And so briefly, what we're going to do is we're going to give a quick run through of why Zotero is particularly exciting, and then we're going to kind of make a pitch to get you guys more involved in the project. Again, our purpose here, I'd like to thank everyone who came to our pre-conference workshop. We were glad to have one of our devs up here who could kind of go through the guts of some of these things. And so, we have some slides up from that, and you can find links from that we'll post to the pages and on our website, where there's documentation and a lot of clips of code and all that kind of stuff. That's not what this presentation is going to be about. This is going to be more of a get people excited, try and get people to do some things with Zotero. So, for starters, I'll give kind of a more abstracted reasoning behind why we built Zotero. So we have a lot of great different kinds of tools that have transformed how scholarship happens, particularly in the humanities. That's where we're coming from. So tools like JSTOR and all sorts of online repositories make it easy to find and access things and work with them in ways that we couldn't before. And then you have in the big picture, word processing really changes the way that scholars write and work with texts and things like that. But then you have things like EndNote. And EndNote is nice. It does some neat features. But particularly in the humanities, we have a majority of people still using note cards. So the numbers are kind of hilarious. Something like 20% of people are using something other than Word documents in the humanities to organize their thoughts, to organize their process. And so the Zotero project is in part a chance to try and pull all these strands together. So we have videos of how these features work, and you can check them out on our website. I'm just going to run through this quickly so everyone's kind of on the same page. So, for example, again, taking JSTOR, I'll show you how Zotero transforms the experience. When you click on the little icon in the corner, you get our iTunes-like interface here, where you can manage items, etc., take notes. This is a full screenshot of it. You're taking notes. On the one side, you have individual items inside collections. And then here we're looking at an article in JSTOR, and you have the Zotero collection open in the half pane at the bottom. When you click on the small little icon up there for the article, it pulls it in and saves it. With JSTOR and a lot of these, you can also bring in attachments. There's a whole lot of things you can do for moving things offline onto your local collection and manipulating them in our iTunes-like interface. Zotero works with a wide array of different services, and this is always expanding. One of the things we talked about in the workshop was how to build translators and things like that. And if you have tools you're working with, you can build translators, and we'll talk a little bit about other ways to make things work with Zotero. But this is another snapshot of all the different kind of sites and databases Zotero works with. And then once you've captured things, down here in the corner, you can see that you can take notes on them, as I showed you in that slide just a bit ago. You can attach any sorts of files. You can simply drag and drop anything into the collection and manage it. And you can tag things and then use a tag selector to filter through content in multiple kind of views and open and work through it that way. Then you can also add relationships, which are just like links inside your collection, linking one item to another. We also allow people to archive entire web pages. So here, this is an archived web page that's saved, and when you do that, you get the ability to highlight text and add sticky notes, etc., which is, again, part of what we're trying to do is close this loop between giving you the features you would have with web resources that you'd have with print resources and vice versa. So in this case, doing the things that we love to do with books, highlighting text and taking notes right on the text. And in the case of the books themselves, adding the ability to round trip that metadata, pull it in, and play with it. So then I'll give a brief comment about the state of the Zotero community. This is, again, part of the pitch for why you should all go home and join our dev group and do what you can with us. So we've got hundreds of thousands of users. We ended our public beta in November, and since then we have something in the neighborhood of 400,000 or 500,000 active users. If you look at our forums, we've got really active conversations. Something in the neighborhood of 100 posts a day happens there with people reporting bugs, talking about new features they'd like. We've got a lot of people in our dev group working on extending and working with other pieces of this. We have 23 different language locales that were all user contributed, so we've got a lot of people in the community joining in. And just a thumbnail sketch of growth, we had something in the neighborhood of 80,000 page views of our quick start guide last month, which is what people look at when they're getting started. So we've got a lot of exciting things going on, and there's a lot of ways you guys can get involved. So to begin with, there are ways that you can make tools you're working on, sites you're building, these kind of things, play nice with Zotero, connect in with Zotero. Then we're also starting to take track of how many people are what we call Zotero campuses recommending Zotero. There are some smaller schools that this becomes a way for them to have a reference management tool since they can't afford other tools, but there are many more schools that already have these other services and are just adding this on as part of their suite of things that they offer students. And so I'll give a brief mention of that, and then Shaker's going to give you guys some more examples of ways that people are extending Zotero, which I think is on some level the most exciting piece of this, that you can take the client API and do all sorts of things, mash things up, etc. So I'm going to run through the first two. Shaker's going to talk about the last one, and then hopefully we'll have a little bit of time for questions. So the first thing I'll mention is that if you want things to work with Zotero, the easiest thing to do is probably to get them to generate coins, which several people talked about. The more people who are doing this, the more we can make sure that our coins translator is working exactly as it should. So if you want to test it out, get things generating coins, and then call us if something doesn't work, because we'll be more than happy to refine things. So here I've just got a shot from the Copic where they have this, and the little book icon comes from the fact that the coins are embedded right there. Another thing we can do is we can make translators pretty quickly. So for example, here's a shot of a RIS file and a MARC record. If you make it easy enough for us to find these files through JavaScript, through our translators, we can often turn around translators in a matter of a day or something like that. We've got a fair amount of people working on them, and we can also help give guidance on building translators and then integrating them into the tool as well. Depending on your needs, these different, whether you go with embedding metadata like coins or through an API or these other tools, or just making it easy enough for us to find your MARC records and your RIS files, those are both viable. So the second point I was going to talk about is that we have a list now. We have something like 70 or 80 different campuses and institutions that have posted information about Zotero on their websites, recommending it to students, faculty, institutions that are looking at making Zotero the tool for all their scholars, like the National Art Gallery, for example. And so we've got a list here. If you have info on your website and you want to be on our list, please just mention it to me. And also, if you want help adding things, feel free to take any text or videos or anything like that that we have on our website and just throw them into your library or use them as a basis to build guides. The library community is really one of the strongest. It's where people come for information about these kind of tools, about research tools. And so the more we have buy-in with you guys, the better chance we have of spreading the word about Zotero. And as I mentioned, it's going very well. We have something like 70 or 80 different institutions, in some cases like MIT, that have written their own documentation, and others where they've just taken our screencasts and posted them on their websites. So that's another genre where if you don't feel like you want to contribute code to the project, you could well contribute to the project by spreading and evangelizing it around. So with that, Shaker's going to take over and talk about some examples of plugins that we have that kind of serve as models for new ideas, for things that you could run out and write your own. And then we'll have time for questions.
I just wanted to quickly find out with a show of hands, how many people here have used Zotero before? Okay, that's really good. How many people here are in institutions where Zotero is officially supported or promoted? How many people here are in institutions where other bibliographic management software is supported or promoted? Okay, this has to change. So I'm going to just briefly run through some of the stuff that we're working on within the Zotero team right now, and some of which we went into more detail yesterday during the developers workshop. And if y'all are interested in testing out some of these things, just let one of us know and we can sort of help you out. This is basic. So we have a whole plugin architecture for Zotero, which we talked about a little bit yesterday. What we're really trying to do now in the project is that it's not even been 2 years old, but as you can see, we've got hundreds of thousands of users, is that we're actually trying to move now from Zotero being a kind of a client-side personal information manager, intelligent bookmark, bibliographic kind of system which sits within your browser, to actually building out a whole kind of suite of services around it, as well as an architecture that's open enough for people to do different kinds of things, where you turn this little thing from just being a personal information manager in your browser to actually a kind of a gateway to the research web. And that would include other types of web services like geospatial data and things like that. So one of the most basic things that we want to do first is that we want to actually have a kind of reliable set of syncing plugins for different types of services like Delicious. And this one works very simply. You have an item in your Zotero collection and it syncs back to Delicious right now. And that through this, it syncs up through particular tags that you mark off in the extension. This extension is ready to go if anyone wants to try it out. We'll send around the link to the page. It was also sent on the Code4Lib group yesterday. There's a link to our pre-conference workshop page on the developer wiki, which contains a link to this XPI for Firefox. This is our Microsoft Word plugin. There is also a plugin for OpenOffice, which works really well. We won't go into too much detail about this right now. And this is some stuff that we're now going to be working on, and which again I previewed a little bit yesterday. This is the exhibit publishing framework from the Simile group at MIT. And this is in response to sort of a thing now that more and more people want to be able to publish their Zotero collections online in fairly sort of flexible ways. And what Exhibit does is it actually provides a really nice faceted browsing framework into which you can put your Zotero collection. So this is just an example, again, of an extension which we can send around to you if you want to try it out, of a sort of something beyond a syncing plugin. This is sort of more data visualization tool where you can change these different facets in the browser. And this is, again, my Zotero collection just thrown up into Exhibit. And if you notice the URL, it's not actually online. It's sitting within your Zotero collection locally through the object handler. So this is an example of Simile Exhibit. Simile has a whole suite of tools, including a tool called TimePlot. If some of you have run Zotero already, you'll see that there's a feature called Create Timeline, which is already integrated into the present version of Zotero, I think for the past couple of months now. That's one of the Simile tools that we've already sort of shipped with. TimePlot and Exhibit we'll be working on now. And now TimePlot actually gives us a way of actually now digging into our Zotero collection and doing things with that data that you wouldn't otherwise be able to do right now just on the client side. I mean, we could find out, for instance, all of the volume of articles on a particular subject within your Zotero collection over a time series. So this is, again, sort of touching on ways in which we're starting to integrate Zotero at the client side with certain interesting web publishing frameworks and services. And we have a kind of slightly half-working demo of how TimePlot works, which I haven't been good enough to create a screenshot of because it doesn't look that good. This one, however, does. And this is an integration of Zotero with the OpenLayers web mapping client, as well as with, if you see these layers that are there on the side, this actually simply just takes the place of publication of anything in my Zotero collection and throws it onto a map. And rather than having the dreaded red dots of Google Maps, we've got the red Z's of Zotero all over the map. This is, again, a very simple demonstration of the kind of power of what you can do with all this data that's sitting inside of your browser once you push it up to a web server. And in this case, it's running on map server and the mapping client called OpenLayers, developed by Metacarta Labs. And one of the interesting things that we're going to try and do now, if you notice in these base layers, is that we're going to start adding new layers into this. So if you could imagine having different types of historical maps in here, different types of public geodata sources, you'll be able to actually navigate and make connections between items in your Zotero collection, as well as with Zotero 2.0, other people's collections. So that's what I'm just going to end with here, is We're introducing something in collaboration with the Internet Archive, which, of course, Brewster was here this morning, so I need not say more about that, called Zotero Commons. And if you see, this is a kind of a preview of what Zotero Commons will look like. And if you take the iTunes metaphor too far, you might say that this is an iTunes music store of Zotero. But I wouldn't like to say that because we have very little to do with that ethos of sharing things. So Zotero Commons is going to be a space that shows up inside of your Zotero collection, which will be a networked repository as well as a space in which shared discovery of sources, collaboration of sort of through people discovering new research materials will hopefully happen. And this is how it will happen. You have your Zotero collection sitting on your own machine inside of Firefox. You push it up to our Zotero server. And this is a feature that we're actually working on with Zotero 1.5, is just this syncing aspect to our own servers. And in Zotero 2.0, where we'll introduce the commons, you'll also be able to push things up to the commons. And hopefully, once we've completed it, you'll be able to pull things back down from the commons. So that means that even though we have a lot of materials which we may not like to share, they're private notes, sort of works in progress, or they're copy-protected, copyrighted sort of materials like, say, from JSTOR, some PDF. We're going to try and build a kind of an architecture around these sorts of sources on the web such that even if we're not permitted to share a PDF on JSTOR, we can still share our annotations, our notes, our different comments and things on that. And the Zotero Commons will be a kind of a scaffolding on top of these kind of closed and gated resources, which will encourage a type of openness. And that's where we're headed in the future, and this is something that we hope you'll all join us on. Thanks.
So we have about 3 minutes to take some questions. So any hands?
Yeah. So I saw also besides the Zotero Common server as an icon there. What's that?
That's a sort of midway stage between where we are right now and what Zotero 2.0 will be. So we're calling that Zotero 1.5, where you'll be able to simply sync and share. You'll be able to sync your collections with our server and have remote access from different machines.
Well, I mean, the bottom line there is that the Zotero Commons is going to be about sharing documents, items, things like that. And so that space issue goes there, where the server is mostly just going to be metadata.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.